Hello friends, this is my last day in the UK. I'm leaving just this afternoon. Well, I don't know when I'll post this video, but today is my last day in the UK and I'm going back to Romania for a while. And I'm doing this because I think I had a little bit, maybe, of a burnout. I don't know. It's really hard to tell with like mental health issues if how do I know what I feel is not what everybody feels and I'm just complaining for nothing and being silly. But for the longest time I thought I'm just being lazy and unproductive and just going to work and then staying on my phone all the time and not doing anything useful. And I watched every productivity video on the YouTube, Thomas Frank, Matt Diavella, Ruby Granger. They're all great. It's great advice. If I was feeling better I would have probably really enjoyed them. I took notes. If anybody wants my notes, I'm happy to share them. But they really didn't help because I couldn't apply any of the advice. It's good advice, but how do I do it? And since I wasn't doing anything to work towards my goals for the year, I thought I would just pack my bags and go and stay with my parents because I miss them a lot. And that used to be one of my goals. In 1st of January I said I want to spend more time with my parents this year, but then the pandemic happened and I didn't even get to see them a day, and I removed that goal because I was like, that's not possible, that's unrealistic. But now, hey, look, it might happen and I already feel better. Like, that's so crazy because the moment I booked the flight, that moment I started to, okay, now I want to film, now I want to send emails, now I want to research things, now I want to see people. Oh my god, it's really crazy how we have problems and the solution is, like, I watched all these videos and I read all these articles and yet the solutions are so tailored to us. But I don't know if that's the answer. Maybe I get to Romania and I'm like, oh no, still sad, what's that about? But I'll keep you updated. So it all started when my mom met my dad and they fell in love. No. It all started when I read this book called How to Overcome Procrastination. And this is not, don't expect this to be the cure to procrastination, because it's not. This is like the book that HR sends you when you're like, I'm feeling a little bit unproductive. Just feels like a very corporate kind of book. Very basic advice, not helpful. Well, kind of helpful. Like, I don't think it's a bad book, but nothing I haven't read before. I found it online. It was like a PDF, 40 pages long. Yeah, I don't have most of these books in physical copies, so I'll put pictures, sorry. But just reading that 40-page book, that's like less than half an hour, and I've put it on my Goodreads. Of course, I have them on my Goodreads to advance. And that was the first book I read this year, and I realized, oh my god, I haven't read any book, and I miss reading, and I like reading, and this was fun. What if I just read? What if I just stopped doing anything that I should be doing or I think I should be doing and just read and go for walks and do relaxing things? And that's what I've done. And I felt a bit guilty that am I just sitting here reading books and going for walks? Who am I? I have things to do. I have things to get done. But now I've completed my Goodreads challenge for the year, so I don't know who's winning. And I just ticked that off, and then I was like, oh, I'll just read another book. Let's just go on with this, that's fine. And I had plenty of books that I had started and they were pending. I always have like 5 books pending. That's normal for me, but they were pending for more than a year, so, or maybe not, but I didn't finish any book this year, so I had just started adding up books. And I just took the next book that I had started, that was the Chimp Paradox, and I had this on Audible. That was my Audible free trial 1 book subscription. I thought it was a really good book when I first started it, and I don't know, beginning of the year or something like that. But I was in a good mental health place and I was going to work, and it was actually recommended to me by one of my previous bosses, that she said to help me with my confidence and speaking up in public. And I really felt like it did make a difference because it made me be more forgiving of myself, of it's not really my fault, and it kind of splits the brain into chimp, humans and machine, and it really simplifies like psychological concept. It does sound a little bit like pop psychology, which I'm not a fan of, but I don't know, it seems like an interesting book and it explains some useful concepts. But funnily enough, when I read it in my bad headspace, the remaining rest of the book, I was very skeptical and I was very like, oh, that's not gonna help me because I've read all these articles and I've watched all these videos and I know all these techniques book. You can't fool me anymore. You were great at the time when I knew nothing about you, but now. So I don't know, read it if you like. So I don't know, it's an average book. I don't think it's life-changing, but I don't think it's terrible. I think there are some good points in it, and it's very basic. If you don't have much knowledge of psychology, it's very basic, and I don't have much knowledge of psychology, so oh, that's so cringe. But I did put as one of my books the Life in the UK Handbook, because I took my Life in the UK test for maybe applying for citizenship. I don't know, I'm going to Romania now. I don't know what's happening. I'll come back, of course, but I don't know. And yeah, for the Life in the UK textbook, actually I really liked it. Like I wasn't planning on reading it. I thought I'm just gonna do quizzes, and you can probably pass with just doing quizzes, to be honest. But the book was such a good summary of UK history and UK politics that it got me so interested in history and politics once again. And you'll see my next books are kind of in that realm. And it was crazy. That's a great summary. They should teach that in high school. They should teach that in university, because I learned more than I did in my high school about, like, probably they taught me all these things in high school and in university, but the summary was great. You get I don't know why I'm recommending the Life in the UK book to everyone, but anyway, I was really impressed with it. 5-star, would recommend. No one puts it on Goodreads. I've put it on Goodreads. And it was actually written under the supervision of Theresa May, if that puts you off. I thought it's a fun fact. Fun fact! In the next book I starting with that realm of politics, and I wanted to see something more optimistic. And I read Utopia for Realists, How We Can Build the Ideal World. That's a great title. That's my dream project. Taking every political part of a system and analyzing what would be the ideal situation we should be in. And I think that would be an amazing project if someone wants to do it, because I don't know much about it. But this book doesn't actually do that, doesn't treat each point. That's what I expected, but it only treats 3 points. And it still blew my mind. It was amazing. This is probably my favorite book just now. I used to say my favorite book is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley before, if anybody needs to judge me by my favorite book choices. But now it's this book, and it's great because it's changed my mind on so many things, and it really made me think about things I haven't thought they're even possible before. And that's so rare. It's so rare to find a book that challenges your opinions and your biases, and maybe it's not going to challenge yours, but it did challenge mine. So it was great. It was a journey. I love this book, and I've not read it. I've listened to it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Maybe it's not fair because Rutger Bregman is amazing, and I've stalked him a lot. I watched all his interviews. He's a great guy. I follow him on Twitter. But yeah, I think I will buy it. I'll probably buy the book just because I like to have the books that I love, and I would like to highlight all the studies he mentioned. He gives so much studies and so much evidence for every fact he says, and it's just amazing. By all the recommendation he gives you in that book, you can get all the ideas for what to read next and other books to read. And I've actually read I've read one of the books that he talks about. And maybe you wouldn't be that impressed if you're familiar with the topics he writes about. He writes about universal basic income, shorter work hour weeks, and open borders, which to me it was like, what, can we give universal basic to everyone? Can we afford that? But even that question, I never thought that's possible. So it was nice to know that there are people who are working on this, and I don't know how that never appeared in whatever things I was reading before. But new concepts, and all of them are new concepts. Like shorter work week, I thought sure you can maybe cut half a day and not do Fridays. I could see how the week is getting shorter in time, but realizing that we could do it earlier and there's research being done about this, that's fascinating. And the same with open borders. I thought that's gonna be chaos, Shruter. What are you talking about? I'm such a boomer. I'm a boomer. But yeah, I'm fascinated by this topic. I have plenty of stuff to learn about, but it was amazing. And I'm such a fan of Rutger Bregman now. If anybody wants to start a fan club together, please let me know, because I need friends to talk about how cool Rutger Bregman is. And then he also mentions in the book other books that are utopias, beginning of utopia as a genre of literature, which I always used to think I like dystopians. I was like, the dystopian, that's my genre. Brave New World, 1984, that's it, I like that stuff. But apparently I like everything that someone makes an effort to think how the future would be like from our own imagination, like how I would see the future in 100, 1,000 years. That's fascinating. I love that stuff. And he mentions one book, Rutger Bregman mentions the book called The City of Sun by Tommaso Campanella. And I don't think he's necessarily recommending this book. He's just mentioning as one of the first Utopia books ever written, and that just sparked some joy. And I was like, guess what? That's what I'm reading next. And the book is a dialogue about, I don't know, there will be spoilers. I like spoilers. I like to read a bit of summary before I start things, so sorry. And Tommaso Campanella lived in 1600, so this is not the most politically correct book, but it's fascinating to know what someone in the 1600s thought the ideal society would be like. And it's written as a dialogue between one captain guy reporting to his king about this society that he discovered called the City of Sun, and is described as the ideal society. And see what these guys are doing, chief. And I actually listened on this on LibriVox. It's an app, maybe I'll put like a little picture of it. But it's an app with free books. It has so many free books, usually older books, but like this book I came across in a modern book in Rutger Bregman's recommendation. And I was surprised, like, oh my god, LibriVox really has lots of books and lots of great books. So if you don't have Audible and you don't want to pay for Audible, older books are great on LibriVox. Newer books, not really, but I mean, save some money. It's still an investment channel. I'm still making savings. I didn't write any reviews on this on Goodreads, so I kind of forgot a lot of things from it already. But it essentially sounds like he's describing kind of communism, because they share everything and it's the men that are in power. So it's a lot of, well, it shouldn't be funny, but I found it funny because he describes it like it's ideal society, it's the brotherhood, blah blah blah, they're sharing women. I'm like, wait, Tommaso, they're sharing women? Like, you just listen to it and it's calm and peaceful, and he describes this happy society, and then it's something like, whoa, calm down there. That's not, they're sharing like children, the slaves are not, they don't have rights, but ideal society, all happy, it's fine, we're good. It's just interesting. It's not a book you read to learn about how the ideal society should be or politics, but it's an interesting book to see how someone in the 1600s thought about. And there are some even like crazier ideas, but I did manage to block them out of my mind and I don't want them back, so thank you for that. So prepare to be a little bit shocked by the things that he says, but he says them in such a light way and such a like, this is the best ideas, guys, like I know, I researched this, that he's quite convincing. And of course, reading in the 2020, hey, you'd just find it like, ugh, like I was listening while going on walks and I kept being like, oh no. But at the time, if I wasn't educated and it was 1600, maybe I would have believed him. Maybe, I don't know, I guess because I'm a woman as well, and a lot of the things are against women and LGBT and children and slaves, and I empathize. It's a crazy book, it's a crazy journey. Embark on it at your own risk if you want to read something crazy. I think this guy even went to jail, but I don't know if for the right reasons, but I've read about this. Wait, maybe it's coming back. I think he went to jail for suggesting things against Christianity, because Italy, but yeah, not really all the other things, just unchristian ideas, which I guess some of them overlap. There's an overlap, I'll give him that. I'll give them that. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of like sidetrack, but Rigoletto, the opera by Verdi, like the same situation with being banned and condemned for the wrong reasons. Because I watched that, I like opera, so I went to that opera without knowing what the plot is about. Sometimes I don't have time to give myself spoilers. I'm so annoying. But yeah, I just went without knowing anything about it, and I was like, oh my god, this is a disaster. What were people watching in the days? And they say like kids nowadays, or no, what were you doing back in the days? It's a lot of, I don't even want to say the word, but unconsensual things with the protagonists, and you know it. You know the song with like La donna è mobile tutto certo. I don't know the rest of the lyrics. But I always thought it's like, oh, the women changed their mind, they're not sure about, but it's about consent and it's problematic. And I used to sing that as a child and be like, yeah, women are fickle and changing our minds. I'm like, oh no, we're not, no. But yeah, the opera was banned because the main protagonist was a monarch and they thought it's bringing the wrong reputation on monarch. How about the other thing? Did we focus on the other thing? No, now it's back because opera is just classy and pure and nice and good quality cultural content, not like YouTube and Netflix. As this just turned into me roasting opera. I do like opera, I just don't think it's as politically correct and cultural and respectful as people make it seem. It's more controversial than it's perceived as. Okay, let's move on from Tommaso Campanello. He took me on a journey. And then I decided to read, I don't know why I even decided to read, oh, I found it in my YouTube recommendation and it was an audiobook, that's why. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a... I don't know what I was expecting from this book. It was literally like it was free on YouTube. I'll just listen to it while I cook and clean and do stuff. I didn't really enjoy it. I thought it's pretty basic advice again. And maybe like such a boomer, but I don't like the swearing. I just felt like there's too much swearing. You don't need to put that much swearing. If you cut the swearing, the book will be half short. Oh, that's so mean. Okay, I'm sorry. It just felt very edgy to me. I was like, is he trying to purposely be annoying and edgy to get marketing attention? And then I googled some interviews with him, and yes, he is. So I respect the hustle, sir. I respect the marketing. It does seem like it got a lot of attention because you say controversial stuff, but he says controversial stuff and then he rubs them up to like a more normal, casual opinion. But just when you have a misunderstanding with your friends and you actually agree, but you're saying it's slightly different, so it seems like you have a disagreement, but you don't really have it. That's what this book felt to me. I still gave it like 4 stars because I respect the hustle of like, I was tricked into clicking on, well, I wasn't really, it was free for me, but I can see how people would be interested in this, and some parts I actually did like, and I wouldn't have read it if I knew that. So the parts I would like about his life and how he started with blogging and how he motivated himself to work from home and be self-employed. I felt like that's quite relatable. But again, if Mark Mason, what's his name? Mark Mason said, oh, this is just my memoir, I would be like, who are you? And the art of Also, I like how these books nowadays need to have the philosophical part and then something controversial or fun to show that we are still fun and quirky, and this is relatable content. The art of not giving a... The Chimp Paradox. It's an art to putting these titles, and they're pretty clickbaity for books. Yeah, audible clickbait, sure. It's alright, don't recommend it. Not a big fan. I don't think it's necessary to read it. I don't think it's life-changing. It's alright, it's not a bad book. I still read it. And now I finally have one book that I have in physical copy, The Courage to Be Disliked. And I bought it because huge saving. That's incentive, that's how my incentive works. And I've been reading this for ages, and these are all the stuff that I disagree with, so don't recommend, not a fan, bin it. No, I still read it because some parts were interesting, and it's by these 2 Japanese guys that preach Alfred Adler's philosophy, psychology. He was a psychologist, but like his philosophy, and it's a guy that worked alongside Freud and Jung, but he's not as famous, and everybody seems to quote him as like the guy that worked with them, but he's not that famous. And it's written as a dialogue, very like Socratic, Plato method, which is quite cute. I like that. And there's one guy who's a writer. I can't say their name. Anyway, the first guy is a writer, and the second one is a philosopher of Adlerian philosophy. Can you be a philosopher if you just preach someone else's philosophy? I don't know. Can you? You just repeat like Adler said. That's how this book felt. Every time it's a student and the master. The youth. You are the youth. That's how you're called. The youth and the philosopher. And you go and you ask advice, and essentially whatever the philosopher says, he sounds a bit snobbish, and I think the philosopher has more problem than the youth. Hot take, but he's always like, Adler says that blah blah blah. A lot of people like this book. This is a very highly reviewed book, and even on Goodreads, a lot of people seem to be saying this book can be life-changing, and that made me dislike it a bit more. I think this book is not that good, but it's overrated. That makes me like it even less. Anyway, I don't want to be a complete hater. Like, the things I enjoyed about this book was that I learned about Alfred Adler. I didn't know anything about him before, and it was interesting to learn about his philosophy. I don't really agree with a lot of it, but he wrote in the 1900s, so I can forgive him for that. These guys, however, they're alive and well, so I don't know. For me, the biggest issue I have, like I said, I'm not very knowledgeable in psychology, but even from the second chapter, they start saying that trauma is not real and depression is not real and it's all in your head, and that seems very like ableist, like blaming people for feeling the way they have. And I started this like a year ago, so it's not like I was feeling attacked, but if anything, I can be the target demographic in the market that they were hitting with this, because I don't have that big problems. I'm fine, really. I'm a bit sad sometimes, and I have a bit of like lower days or lower months, but if anything, for me it works. When my mom calls me and she's like, Vivi, stop complaining and do stuff, tough love works on me. So for them to tell me like, you're not depressed, you don't have trauma, yeah, sure, I don't, but how about the others that do? Do we just tell them like, oh, walk it off? And I'll be an even bigger hater, but it reminds me a lot of like The Secret of or Law of Attraction, which I've also read, and I'm not a fan. They're good if you treat them as positive psychology, which I'm okay with. Just things that motivate you and think positive and try to make yourself happy and think about happy thoughts and tell yourself you're pretty. I'm on board with that. Maybe that also sounds crazy, but I agree with that. That's fine. Positive psychology I support, but when you're going the extra mile of you don't have trauma, you are sick because you don't believe enough in the universe to get well, that's when it gets a bit of a blur line. And I don't think it's fair for these books to not give disclaimers and not acknowledge that they are not the all-bearing answers. I think that's irresponsible, and I think that's a bit crazy, and I don't like saying that because I have a lot of friends that do believe in the law of attraction. And I feel rude when I'm like that person skeptical at a party, where like, oh, I'm not spiritual. Because I do the same things. Like I do agree with thinking positive, and I can get manifesting stuff, thinking about the things you want to achieve, retelling yourself your goals. I just phrase them a bit different, but I get the point. But there are cases of people who are not taking medicine because they believe the universe will heal them, and that's problematic, and no one really talks about them because we see the pretty sparkly sides of the stories and ignore the bad thing and ignore the problems. Anyway, I didn't want to go on a rant with that. I just meant to say I don't recommend this book, but I still read all of it and put flags for everything I disagreed with, so I had fun. That was fun. Big achievement. Another book I've listened to on LibriVox, again, all books on LibriVox, great, huge recommendation, is Indiana by George Sand. I don't know if anybody heard about George Sand. I just learned about her. She's a girl. She was a woman. What? And it blew my mind. Like I was looking at pictures of aesthetic, bohemian, artistic, or philosopher bedroom ideas, because why not? It's my aesthetic. And I found this beautiful picture of a living room that Chopin used to live in. I might be saying his name wrong, I don't know. And there were like 5 pictures of the same lady on the wall. And I thought she looks like my best friend, so I sent her a screenshot with like, what you doing in Chopin's bedroom? Do you have some explaining to do? It wasn't my best friend, spoiler alert. And it turned out to be George Sand, and well, they were a couple, and that was her home. And it kind of took me on a rabbit hole of who's George Sand, and I didn't even realize it's a guy's name, because George, like guy's name on girl, is in right now. I don't judge. Then her real name was Aurore Dupin, and she was just writing under a pseudonym to be more appealing to the general public. And she has an amazing life story, like just her, George Sand. She was seen as one of the best writers of her generation, and her generation was Balzac and Victor Hugo, and they all endorse her as the best writer. And when everyone know that she's a woman, her popularity kind of decreased, or maybe not in the time because she was controversial, but after her death we kind of forgot about her. And I would be surprised if people heard about her that's good, educated, but I didn't hear about her, and I felt a bit like, I'm on this quest of finding women that are not that well known, that wrote under like male pseudonym or pretended to be guys. Anyway, the book is just a love story. I don't think it's a love story. It's kind of seems to be a love story, but it's more of a drama, I guess. It's someone that gets married with a guy that she doesn't love, or she was forced to marry him. I can't remember. And I'm not really into like fiction and love novels. I don't know. In high school I would have probably enjoyed it, but now I'm not really into them. But I did enjoy like her notes. She does add some notes as the author, and she was perceived as George, as a guy that really understands women. It's hilarious, and you feel like you are in on a little secret, because she has these passages of like, my fellow man will understand that this blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, I know I'm from the future. I probably would really like to read her memoir, to be honest, but it's really long, like 1,000 pages. She wrote her own Bible, that girl, crazy. But yeah, I think that would be more interesting to read her own thoughts than novels, maybe just for me. But it was interesting. It was a good start to read her first novel, just to see how her writing was after stalking her online for a few days. And finally, the last book I've read this month is The Gift of Fear: Survival Signals to Protect Us from Violence, just to bring me a bit down after all the happy books. And once again, I think I've read it as a PDF. I found it online and just downloaded it as a PDF. I think this is a interesting book. It did change my mind a little bit on intuition and our like gut feeling, because I used to think like, don't believe in that's silly. But I can see the reasoning behind it. And the guy that writes it, like the Becker, his experience is fascinating. Like he gives examples of cases, and I can't remember what his job title actually used to be, but he's working with victims of stalkers or serial killers, like very, very crazy cases, and it's terrifying. Like this book did give me quite a lot of anxiety to hear about all this crazy stuff happening in the world. But it's fascinating to see how our intuition, we perceive it as like this feeling, but really it's relying on like, this person is a bit too close, this person is staring at me, I've seen this person before, but I can't really recall, and I don't know, it's something behind the reasoning more that you realize once you tell the story with a professional and he finds these hidden reasons behind our intuition, which I thought that's a great perspective, and that was very interesting. And like I said, all the experience that he shares on cases he's been involved with and telling what should have been the best way to proceed as the victim, it's quite educational. Like I really felt like I'm in training to be a CIA agent. Look at me getting all the training up, but also my anxiety was really high and I was scared of everyone in the park if it was just getting a little bit dark. So maybe not the best book for me, because I'm already overly cautious, and I think he made me feel like I'm not cautious enough. And that's not, like, everybody tells me, Vivi, you're too paranoid all the time, and for this guy to make me feel like, oh, I'm not paranoid enough, that's an achievement. That's impressive. I'm proud of you. Like, even at some point he says women are easy prey if they go in the park while listening to music or running, and you're decreasing your senses and you can't sense the danger. I was like, whoa, I can't imagine not even wearing headsets while we're on the street. And I don't know, some parts I'm like, it's a bit too far, but now you're making me really scared, and I believe you, but I'm also a very scared baby as it is. And only in the last chapter does he talk about being too fearful or being paranoid, which I feel like I needed that in the beginning. Don't tell me now that I might be too paranoid, because now I'm already extra paranoid than I was when I started your book. But anyway, if you're more of an adult than I am, then this is a great book. I recommend it. I learned a lot from it. It did make me more scared, but I'm working on fixing that. If you have a book to fix my gift of fear, let me know. And yeah, that was all the books I have for August, and it was such a fun month, although I wasn't feeling my best and I wasn't productive. I feel like I really turned it around, and now I can say I read a lot of great books and I had fun, and this was great. Let me know if you have any book recommendations or what are your favorite books. I would like to check them out. And yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.